Okay, so another one of my slightly off the farm things today. I'm recording some stuff for the Radio 4 farming programme. In about half an hour's time, Sally Challoner and Charlotte Smith, I think her name is, the main presenter of BBC Radio 4's farming programme, is coming to the farm, and we're going to record some stuff about rats on the farm, which are also a problem, but also some of you might have seen my YouTube videos of Graham the ferreter, ferreting with rabbits. Have a look at those. He's actually going to do some stuff about ferreting for Radio 4 because it is a problem with pests on the farm. Rabbits are quite a considerable problem, especially if you've got growing crops like maize, because they tend to chomp off the tops of the plants as they come up. So we're going to be out with him ferreting, hopefully. So I'm going to basically, I'll try and do a little bit of an interview with them when they turn up to just show you what it's like meeting the presenters, and then I'll edit in the recording off the radio. So hopefully you can see a nice little bit of farming that is, you know, another side of farming and another side of my life, doing a bit of radio. Anyway, cheers.
Bristol anyway.
Hi Graham, alright?
Morning.
So Graham's turned up.
Thanks for coming along. Hello, cheers.
This is Trigger.
There's Sally.
Exactly. That's a ferret. Nice to meet you.
Alright, celebrity.
Hello, mate. Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Start you off on Radio 4
Yeah.
today.
Who knows where you'll end up, Graham?
Yeah. Well,
Prison, probably.
We've got 10 minutes, so
Yeah, we got a bit of time.
Yeah, I just want to run Trigger out for the film, mate.
You go and have a look around and see what you can find then, Graham.
I just want to take him for
All right.
Well, I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, brilliant. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Charlotte Smith, the presenter, the taxi driver's just got lost, so she's actually he's actually phoned me to say where is the farm, so she's coming down the road now. All right, mate. Hello. All right. Straight on up, past that sign there, and up to the top. All right. Cheers. I've got Laurel and Hardy here. Also known as Sally. Well, let me introduce yourselves. Who are you?
I'm Sally Challoner.
Yeah.
And I'm Charlotte Smith.
And why are you here on our farm? Look at this. They didn't expect to get
we're beginning
this.
to wonder, yeah.
We're looking for your rats.
Yeah.
For rats and anything else?
Intelligent comments?
Well, we might have to go somewhere else for that. See, this is nice because this is the casual side of farming today, which you don't always see, isn't it?
We can do professional.
You can do. We're hoping to do professional later.
Yes, we are going to make a programme for Radio 4 which it's called Farming Today this week, and it's a half an hour compilation really of all the things that we did on Farming Today, which is the programme that goes out at 5:45 every week on Radio 4. And then on a Saturday it goes out at 6:30 and we look at a particular theme, and this week it's pests and predators and how to control them.
And we've got a few here today, so we're gonna. No. So we're gonna crack on now, and I'm gonna switch this off, and we'll just start then. Okay? Thanks very much.
Possibly go wrong.
That is brilliant. Do you know what? That's.
Sarah Montague and John Humphreys will present the Today programme this morning from 7 o'clock. Before that, Farming Today this week here on Radio 4 with Charlotte Smith.
Good morning. Well, it's a beautiful spring morning here in South Gloucestershire. But I've actually come to this farm to talk about, well, frankly, unsavoury subjects, pests and predators, and how farmers and others track them and dispatch them. I'm talking about things like rats, foxes, rabbits, seals, mink. This is a Newhouse farm here in Titherington. It's just north of Bristol, and we're in the farmyard this morning. As I say, it is really sunny, and this is a lovely old-fashioned farmyard here. So the sun is glancing off these beautiful old stones, and it's a lovely place to be, but we are not alone. We have with us the farmer here, Rich Cornock. Rich, What pests do you reckon are also here this morning? We've got a couple of birds flying around.
I can certainly say there's probably some rats within a few feet of us, because on most farms there are some rats. It's a problem that every farm gets, really. And as you said, we're in the old part of the farm, and we're stood next to this lovely old building here. This is a classic traditional farm building, but the main problem with it is, of its age, is that there's a lot of hollows in the walls, and rats just love an old building. They can get into the hollows and they can make a nest, and then of course we keep calves in here because it's still a working building, a bit of calf food around. It's a nice place to be. If we go into this building here, I can show you a nice rat hole, which
Oh gosh, it's dark in here, isn't it?
Gloomy, but
We could be in a Thomas Hardy novel in here.
these old barns didn't put windows in, didn't need them, did they? But look, if you look up there, can you see the hole in
Oh,
the...
I can. And this is just between the roof coming down on the top of the wall, and it's a beautiful oval
It's
hole.
a beautiful oval hole that a rat or something has gnawed around to make a little exit for it. And then, of course, they can scamper along the walls here. And every now and then I come in here and you might see a rat. But
Does
there's
it
nothing
matter, though, honestly? Can't you live and let live?
there. Would you like a rat in your house? I mean, I tell you what, I don't mind most animals, but a rat is something that I always jump out of my skin when I see it, because it's just a scary thing. But the other thing as well is you've got to consider the disease aspect of it. I mean, I've got young children, and there's Weil's disease, and that is the main worry about having rats around the farm. They do a lot of damage as well, but you do hear instances of farmers or farm workers getting Weil's disease, and it can kill people, can't it?
The other thing I suppose you could do is that you could not use these buildings, use them for something else, and build some nice spanking new rat-proof
Well, we're going to have a
affair.
look at some new buildings, because it doesn't matter where you go, a rat will go. The other key thing is rabbits on the farm, and we grow maize on the farm for the cattle, and if you go along just after the maize has started to come up, the rabbits love that, and up and down the side of the hedge you can actually see clear signs where the rabbits have been. They've been out and they basically chew off all the tops of the maize plants. You know, you think of Beatrix Potter and the rabbits in his garden eating the cabbages. Well, on my farm, that's the maize is my cabbages, if you like, and they've gone out and they've chomped away at, had a lovely breakfast, you know. So that's a problem, you know.
Well, we'll talk about all sorts of pests and predators as we go round the farm this morning. Let's, though, just get a few facts about rats. There are 6.5 million of them in the UK, and incredibly, that figure doesn't include urban rats in sewers or on rubbish tips. As Richard said, they do spread disease. They can also gnaw through pipes and wiring and eat feed supplies on farms. Well, the British Pest Control Association trains its members and farmers in dealing with all sorts of pests and predators. Their technical manager, Richard Mosley, told me why rats are such a problem.
There are so many areas on a farm where they can live, and also what you can quite often get in rural areas is migration and movement of rodents in between different sites, different locations. And of course the other problem that you have on a number of farms is that rodents, when you've got crop in the fields, then rats especially will be quite happy to live and survive in the fields, but as soon as you start to bring that crop indoors at harvest time, then that tends to drag the rodents in with them. It's a mixture of the lack of food source out in the fields and the changing weather, the colder conditions. That tends to drive rodents into farms, and then it's an annual problem where you get those ongoing issues with rodent activity.
And they're very difficult to control, because though everybody will tell you you're only ever 6 feet away from a rat, most of us just see the end of a tail occasionally.
You're quite right, they are incredibly difficult to control. When we talk about the common brown rat, it has a number of natural defence mechanisms built into its natural behaviour, so it's aware of new items and it stays away from those new objects. So that means that even if you put control measures in place, you have to accept the fact that it could be some time before you start to gain control over the rodent activity, because it will actually avoid any new items that you put in place.
So how do you deal with rats? Let's take rural areas first, as opposed to actually on farm.
Well, you've got to be thorough. The best way to treat rodents, rats especially, is to get to the source of the infestation. So that's to get to the burrow system and take the control directly to the rodent itself. That's the quickest and the most efficient, but that's not always possible. So then what you've got to do is work with the tools and the area that you've got access to and get enough monitoring points, enough baiting points, enough control measures in place to actually get on top of the rodent problem. As well as that, it's important that you address things such as good hygiene, poor storage. The more access you get to rodents, the more uncomfortable you make them in the area where they're living, then the better the chances are you have of control.
Richard Mosley there. We're on the Cornock family farm here just north of Bristol this morning. It's a dairy farm, and actually we're just looking at some of the dairy cows here at the moment. Small black and white jobs, if you want the technical description. Looking somewhat suspiciously at us here this morning as they loaf around in the farmyard. But Rich, you're about to take us into the barn to look at something a lot less attractive than a dairy cow.
We might even find a rat for you, because I know you're keen to see one.
Oh, really keen? Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to go into where we rear our heifers. And it's a bit crowded at the moment because we are shut down with TB at the moment, unfortunately. At the back of here is where we stack our straw to bed them down with, and we still have small bale straw in this shed because it's easier to throw over into them. And what I do is, when we stack the straw here in the autumn, I actually put rat bait down where the bales are, and I bag it so that basically the bait doesn't get mixed with the straw. But you can see the remains of where the rats have been, because there's the remains of the empty bags. And the rat has actually gone inside the bag and has eaten out all the bait and just left the empty bag. And as I clear this straw, I find the dead carcasses of the rats, which isn't pleasant. And I've just saved one here for you. Look. Well, I actually haven't saved it. It was here. It was one that decided to end its day on top of the wall.
Oh my.
So that's the sort of thing I find at the bottom of a straw stack after it's had the bait. You can see it's pretty mummified. It's quite an old one. Not pleasant,
it is.
is it?
I mean, it does look like something you'd find in archaeological remains. It's just that the skin of the rat really slightly flattened. Obviously,
I'll put that down.
there are very few people who are going to feel a whole lot of sympathy for a rat.
If anyone feels sympathy, they can come and have my rats.
How much of a frustration for you are they? Because in a sense, it is a battle you are never going to win.
Absolutely right, but the main thing is control, because what I've found, this is something that is interesting, I've learnt as I went along with this. Actually, when we used to stack our straw in here, I didn't used to put any bait in at all. And what happened over the winter, those rats would get in here, because in the winter time they always come inside to get away from the bad weather. They would make a lovely nest, have a couple of kids. It's almost like a holiday camp. You've got straw, you've got warmth, you've got feed in the straw, with bits of corn and things. And by the time I get to the bottom of the haystack, it's almost like confetti. They've chewed through all the strings, all the bales have been chewed through, a lot of rat dropping, so the risk of Vars disease again. And it was a nightmare, because trying to move all these bales, you just end up with a mess. So now I pre-bait, and I don't get that problem at all. I can go through a whole stack. There's hardly any wastage at all. I find the odd dead rat like you've just seen, but I won't find any chewed up bales, and I won't find any bales that are broken.
So that's rats. What about foxes? Because they're a problem for lots of farmers.
Yeah, certainly on our farm there are quite a few foxes around, and they come and go various frequency. A couple of years ago we did have a vixen have cubs down in near an old barn. She had, I think, 5 cubs down there. The main thing that was quite surprising to me is the amount of wildlife that they obviously feed those foxes, those cubs, because around the edge of the den was various different things that they'd had for breakfast or tea. There was remains of duck, pheasant, and also, which was quite surprising to me, was the remains of a lamb. And there was a rib cage and the spine of a lamb, because this was sort of March time. They'd obviously managed to find a lamb from somewhere. Now, I don't know whether the fox had killed a lamb or whether it found one that had died, naturally when it was born, perhaps, because there's always a few deaths on the farm like that. But it managed to drag a whole lamb all the way down to this fox's den for its cubs to eat. We used to keep a lot of chickens on the farm, actually. My mum, when I was a kid, we used to have free-range chickens. And the thing is, they'd come in the daylight and do a daylight raid, and they'd kill maybe 10 and take 1. And they'd leave a scattering of dead chickens lying around the farmyard, which wasn't pleasant, really.
Well, Anna Hill has been out to talk foxes with Gerald Gray. He's the gamekeeper on the Hillborough estate in Norfolk. So he's in charge of shooting and conservation on the estate. He has to strike a balance between game birds, farmland birds, predators and wildlife. Well, Anna joined him at night to see how foxes are controlled.
We're driving along in the dark. We're out in the middle of Norfolk, and I'm with Gerald Gray, who is a gamekeeper. And the reason we're out here this evening is to track down a predator, which is the fox. And the way that Gerald is doing this tonight is lamping. Now, lamping is where you use a light to startle the animal. You're already set up, and then it is shot cleanly. Oh, there goes a rabbit straight across in front of us. The moon is shining. It's not a very dark night,
using a rifle at night, you must know exactly where you are, exactly where every rise and fall is in the ground, so that you are shooting safely. So even if we do see a fox and it's in an unsafe position, there's no way I'll take a shot. It's got to be one of those situations, everything has to be exactly right to take that shot.
So as we come into the next field again, Gerald is holding the lamp and sweeping it across the field. Oh yes, I can see the deer.
3 deer out in the field. There's rare roe deer, 4, 5 deer out in the field. Now they're very easy to see. They're all looking at us. They're lifting their heads up and down, just looking around. Now in front of those deer, you'll see a little bit more of a redder eye there, like slight pink. Halfway between us and the deer, well, that's a hare sitting there. You can see on this side with this equipment here.
Oh yeah.
But the
This
wind is in our
scope
face.
is amazing
Yeah.
because I'm looking through the telescope. It's bright green. The light is clear. I can see all the trees. I can see the sky. I can see the foreground very clearly as well.
It works on a light intensification. It draws in light. Now I can see those deer nicely now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out there. They're moving around, just feeding out there. So what I'm looking through here is a spotter, but it's exactly the same as what's on the rifle, but with a big cross in the middle of it, so you know exactly what you're looking at. When I look at a fox, I don't look at eyes, I look at the body. I know exactly where it is. I look at the trees in the background, what's around, and when I'm looking at the fox, then it's within the distance I want to shoot. I get the crosshair on it, and then I pull the trigger, and that's the way it happens, and that's the way I control the fox population here like this.
So you're not shining a light at the animal and then shooting it, because I think that's what a lot of people think clamping is.
Yes, but it isn't for me, because with this equipment, you can see what you're looking at in the dark, and then you can take your shot in the dark.
Gerald Gray with Anna in Norfolk there. Now, control of pests and predators is tightly regulated here in the UK. You have to comply with codes of practice, and any killing must be done humanely. There are, though, those who want to get rid of legally protected species. We've seen some prosecutions in the courts of people killing birds of prey, for example. Raptors are predators and can feed on other game birds like partridges and pheasants, which are bred for shoots. Well, Bob Elliott is head of investigations at the RSPB, and he told Anna he's concerned about the number of illegal killings of birds of prey.
In 2013, which is the most accurate data set we have at the moment, we've got 68 confirmed incidents of animals and birds poisoned. That's 30 buzzards, 20 red kites, a golden eagle, a white-tailed eagle, so it's still happening far too often.
The thing is, though, these are predators, aren't they? They're doing what they always do, which is kill other animals to eat. That's exactly where it comes into conflict with the gamekeepers or the landowners who don't want that to happen on their land. Can a balance ever really be brought to bear on this conflict?
Well, one looks at the conflict, as you say, it really is quite straightforward. The birds of prey are protected and have been for a long time. And to be frank, the evidence base to show that something like 50 million pheasants and red-legged partridges are introduced into our countryside every year. And that's quite a lot of biomass there that birds of prey would find quite attractive. And there are lots of ways to deter these birds, to work around this issue if you have it. And that's the way it should be. People shouldn't be trying to get licenses to kill our birds of prey because they are rearing pheasants or grouse for shooting purposes.
Can we have too many birds of prey because they're protected? Could they ever become too numerous?
Well, no. I mean, the basic predator-prey relationships will define that the bird of prey is the top of the food chain and they are affected by their prey base. And we've seen declines in some species because of probably food problems. The conflict on grouse moors will be to do with hen harriers eating young grouse chicks at a certain time of the year. And land managers and gamekeepers don't want that to happen. They want the maximum amount of grouse to shoot. So there's a conflict there. So we've got 4 breeding hen harriers in England last year, and that's a bit of a nightmare. They're a protected species and nothing's happening. So we're looking at working with landowners and land managers on the Langham project in Scotland and looking at whether you can have a driven grouse moor and raptors all at the same time. And the answer looks like yes. but you need to do diversionary feeding and other things as well. So highly complex relationships between predators and prey need to be teased out at that level. You can't just say, well, suddenly protected raptors, which have been protected for a long time, at least 1954, are going to suddenly start inflicting some sort of pressure on our environment. Really, the pressure that the birds may be bringing are on game shooting interests, not farmers or anybody else for that matter.
Hey, Twig, go and find them.
Now, we've walked down across 2 or 3 fields here on the farm, and we're with one of the Cornock's neighbours, Graham, and his dog, Trigger. You've been wandering along this hedge, and you've brought us, well, I say you, Trigger has brought us to a couple of holes in the bottom of the hedge here. And you reckon there are rabbits in there?
Rabbit, yeah. Well, as you see, he went down there and he reckons there's one in here, so...
So you've gone and you've got this...
That's what we call a purse net.
So the theory is, you put the net over the hole.
Yeah, put the ferret through.
Put the ferret in, the rabbit comes out, goes into the purse net, and you close the... and then you've got a rabbit in a net.
Yeah, he just closes up like that, yeah.
Right, we'll let you get on with that.
Right, my dear.
There are people who find all this really distasteful. You know, the idea that we are going to try and flush the rabbit out, and then ultimately the rabbit is going to be bopped on the head and eaten or skinned or whatever. It just doesn't go with the image people want to have of farming.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable that it's not for everyone, but I mean, in any situation, you've got to control pests. It's interesting, we're talking about the rats we were talking earlier. I was down at a cinema chain recently, and I noticed a lot of rat boxes outside in the car park where they'd obviously people drop food, and people didn't necessarily know what those boxes were, but I knew that was pest control. So pest control goes on wherever you are, whether it's on a farm or whether it's a restaurant somewhere. So, you know, and this is just another example of that. But the one key thing I like about this is that the rabbits aren't killed just for the sake of it, they are actually eaten, so they're not wasted, if you like.
Now, Graham has very neatly put this purse net just over the hole that we've got at the bottom of this hedgerow here, and he is now doing the same thing to another hole. Now, you might be able to hear, actually, some sort of scrabbling noises in the background here, and that's the ferret. Right on cue. Now, the ferret's kept in this wooden box. As you can hear, he's keen to get out and do some work, I think.
That's the ferret. He hasn't got a name, but...
That smells like ferret, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
You can smell them before you see them.
Right, the trigger will stay there, and the ferret will go in. Straight in, no messing about. If you want to stand back now, and hopefully we'll get one out.
So we're standing, staring at a hedge.
Yeah.
I think Trigger's heard something.
He's watching up there.
It's the way he moved.
Go see. Go up. Good boy. You stay there.
In a way, Rich, this is one of those countryside skills which will die out with people like Graham.
I don't know. I mean, there's still a few young people that keep ferrets, but yeah, I mean, there's a ferret's just come out of the hole.
The ferret's
there's a rabbit from it. Yeah. The rabbit is there somewhere, because I've seen it, so we know there's a rabbit there. Oh, he's come back up. Look. Of course, the trouble is, it's finding every exit. That's the biggest problem. I mean, we've got a long hedge here. Now, Graham thinks he's got every exit. We've got 5 holes covered, but, you know, you never know. You might have missed one in the middle, and the rabbit's just gone out the back door when you're looking at the front door, isn't it? You know?
You're listening to Farming Today this week here on BBC Radio 4. This morning we're on a dairy farm in South Gloucestershire, and we are currently gathered around a hedge, waiting patiently. We're talking about pests and predators and what farmers have to do to control their numbers. Now, that is a particularly difficult question when we're talking about a predator which is also a protected species. Now, that's particularly difficult for fish farmers because they lose valuable stocks to seals, but their methods of controlling those seals can prove very controversial. Well, Nancy Nicholson has been to the west coast of Scotland to hear the issues.
I'm in Loch Leven on a boat heading out to some salmon cages, and I'm with Steve Bracken of Marine Harvest. Steve, it's absolutely stunning. Describe the hills we're looking at here.
Well, they're all snow-capped, as you can see at the moment. Absolutely delightful. We've got the Papa Glen Coal, we've got round the corner up towards the Ballaholish Bridge, and it all looks magnificent.
It certainly does, and we're just approaching the cages. How many fish do you have in here?
On the whole farm, we've got 480,000 fish spread out over the 12 pens that you can see here.
Right, and that's us just arriving now. Okay, thank you. That just took a couple of minutes. That was very quick. And the fish are jumping already. We can see them here.
Yep.
These are huge cages and they're covered in nets, Steve. Is that to protect them from avian predators?
That's right. We can have problems with herons. So the idea here is we've got this net, this bird net as we call it, about 2 metres up above the surface of the water. Because what herons can do quite easily is come to the net, this bird net, and bounce on it. And when the fish are small, when they come in as smolts in particular, the heron can put its beak through the net and then try and stab the small fish in the pen. But if you get it up 2 metres, they can't do that.
So, a beautiful location, as we said, but nothing is perfect. And you've got predators below the water as well, and those are the seals.
That's right. Seals are a problem to salmon farmers, there's no doubt about it.
Are you able to work out how much salmon seals take from your cages?
Yes, we can work that out very accurately, because what tends to happen is the seal will come along to the net and take a bite through the net at a fish that's just on the other side. And it will tend to go for the belly area of the fish. It will take one bite and then leave it, and then it'll go for another fish. So by looking at these mortalities, as we call them in fish farming, you can see very clearly that they have been bitten by a seal. So we know for sure exactly how many we've lost.
And how many have you lost?
Last year we lost 70 tonnes overall in our business to seals.
Out of what sort of production?
Well, last year we produced 48,000 tonnes of fish, of salmon. But it's not just the mortality, it's the stress that the seals can cause on the fish in the pens. So just like any animal, fish exactly the same, they can suffer from stress. So if we can keep the seals away from the farm in the first place, that's a big advantage for us. We've got to make sure that we've got nets that are tight to make it difficult for the seal to actually charge at the net to try and take a bite of the salmon. And we've got to make sure that we've got seal scarers in place, and these are sonic devices, let's put it like that sit in the water and give it a loud noise, and that loud noise deters the seal from coming to the nets.
So you can put measures in place, and you do put measures in place, but the controversial aspect of seals is that you also shoot them.
That's correct, but only ever as a last resort. And we've done a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years in reducing the number of seals that we've shot on our farms. To put it in context, last year on our 46 farms, we shot 7 seals. The year before that, we shot 5. The year before that, it was 6. But going back in time, there were many seals shot. So we believe we've done a lot of work to get us where we are today.
People who think about salmon and they imagine this landscape, they don't imagine you shooting seals. I understand what you say, that it's a problem for the industry, but it's a big PR issue as well, isn't it?
Every farmer has his predator. The shepherd may have foxes, the chicken farmer may have foxes, we happen to have seals. But I think it's really important to say that we have made great strides in reducing the numbers that have been shot. And we don't want to shoot seals. It is only ever done as a last resort. So it's important that we have these other measures in place to make sure that we keep it to an absolute minimum. We want to get it to 0.
Steve Bracken there from Marine Harvest with Nancy Nicholson up on the west coast of Scotland. Well, here in a field in South Gloucestershire, I have to say it is currently rabbits 1, farmers 0, because as we were looking the other way, the rabbit came out of the hedge on my right. It ran across this field to another hedge on the left, pursued by a laughing farmer. Rich, we just saw that rabbit there.
Sorry.
Herring across
herring.
the field, which sort of proves that they're in charge, really.
Well, they are, aren't they? I mean, as good as Graham is, he's not going to get every single rabbit. And why would you want to get every single rabbit? I'm a lover of wildlife, and I don't want to see every rabbit killed on the farm. But certainly you've got to control something like that, otherwise they get out of hand. But yeah, we weren't going to catch that one, weren't we? It was gone. Look, he's got one. Quick, let's go and have a look.
So the rabbit has been neatly, humanely and very quickly dispatched there.
That's right, yeah.
So Graham, what will you do with the rabbit? Do you eat it? Do you sell it?
I'll make a curry. I'll do quite a bit with rabbits, yeah.
So Rich, we've got the balance back now. Rabbits 1, farmer 1.
Yeah, one got away, one's ready for the pot. That's not a bad count, is it?
Well, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. That's it from us here in Gloucestershire. Next week on the programme, we'll be talking about renewable energy, potentially a big moneymaker for farmers and landowners. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer this morning is Sally Challoner.